Ahoy hoy, I'm Planet Walk, and something that I've noticed about conspiracy theorists is they often try to make their conspiracies as big and as grand as they possibly can. Take flat earthers for example. Their whole conspiracy is about the shape of the entire planet. But here's the thing, flat earthers are going to have to watch out because Roger from Mudfossil University has a different idea about the entire planet. Apparently it's decomposing.
Okay, my friends, this just came across my desk. A massive Alaska earthquake triggers tsunami warnings. However, they canceled them. But this was a 7.3 earthquake on the Aleutian chain, exactly where Pierre and I were discussing. What we were looking at is biology.
So immediately off the bat we have a wild claim out of the blue, and you know what, I'm not even surprised. It sounds about right for a Mudfossil University video. Apparently earthquakes are caused by biology now, and I do wonder what the scale is at this point. Are we at the point where the Earth is just one giant dead creature, or do we have a ways to go before then? Because I actually look forward to the point where we escalate beyond that, where he tries to claim that the solar system is one single giant creature.
That's biology. That's not sedimentation or rocks just collecting here and there. That is biology.
Roger, I can assure you that it is just rocks. As I've explained before, there is a limit to how big an organism can get before it just no longer works.
And this is up on the Aleutian chain. And this is some really gnarly biology. And here's where this earthquake took place, up by Sand Point. Now, where is that? It's right at Scorpzilla's tail. And that runs right out. This is right on top of the tail of Scorpzilla. And right out there, there's his pincher.
So as you'd expect from Roger, it is just pareidolia. It looks like it could be a tail, therefore it must be a tail. Even though there's no realistic way that it could be a tail, because the way that he's describing it, it's an oddly flat tail. You see, the approximate width of what he is calling a tail there is 180 kilometers, and the deepest part of the ocean that I could find nearby was 7 kilometers. Now let's add 500 meters on top of it to account for the elevation of the land. Now 180 divided by 7.5 is 24. Now if we assume that the bottom side of the supposed tail that we can't see is just as thick as the top side of the tail, then we have to divide that number by 2 and we get 12. This means that the tail would roughly be 12 times wider than it is thick. If you want to know what that would look like, here's a bit of a visualization. Now it is not at all realistic for the tail that Roger is describing to be that thick, because if it were that thick, then it wouldn't curve like that. This is because when something bends, it's a lot easier for it to bend along where it is thinnest. I can show you this with my wrist, for example. If I bend it along where it is thinnest, then it is very easy to bend it. But if I try bending it along where it is thickest, then it's a lot harder to bend it. Now the thing about my wrist is I can still bend it like that. But the important thing to note is that my wrist is not 12 times thicker than it is thinner. And of course, if you do have a creature that's as big as Roger is saying, then you cannot have something that is too thin. Because if you do, it falls off. Physics takes over eventually. The problem is that Roger is imagining that the geography there has a lot more depth than what it actually has.
Now, I've shown this over and over, and now this whole area is ready to explode, the whole thing.
Oh dear. There was a very recent event that happened not too far from there. A magnitude 8.8 earthquake. Roger's going to use that as proof that he was right all along, isn't he?
And this whole area here now is prone to exploding, as is the entire Earth.
Okay, so the entire Earth is going to explode. I should probably let Roger know something. Eternals wasn't a documentary. Like, I know it has all of your favourite stuff, a giant creature living in the Earth about to explode, but it was all CGI. None of it happened and none of it is going to happen.
Because it's decomposing, and as it does, the decomposing things that are in the Earth are swelling and causing slow earthquakes even.
Okay, and how do you propose that the Earth is decomposing? Because generally when things bloat from decomposition, it is because it's being decomposed by things like bacteria. Which makes me wonder, Is it just regular bacteria that's feeding on the Earth? Or is it giant bacteria? Now, if it's just regular bacteria, that would mean that the things that are being decomposed would most likely be organic, which means that if you drill down far enough, you should just reach rotting organic matter. But if it's giant bacteria, I know that we can assume that we don't know what it would be made of, but if you drill down far enough, then you'd be able to find these massive living bacteria. And given that you said that the supposed giant tail is decomposing, then it shouldn't be too hard to get the evidence you need. All you have to do is go to this tail, drill down 6 or 7 kilometers, maybe not even that, and then you'd find either decomposing organic matter or giant living bacteria. As they say, get digging. Especially since you're saying that the Earth is going to explode. It might be important to get evidence for your position that the Earth is going to die, just like my camera did.
Pierre and I both went through a whole bunch of courses through Coursera. Right? Okay. Now,
right, sir.
Right.
I wonder what those courses are, because in the past, Roger has shown an inability to read, which would make passing any course difficult, to say the least. My guess would be that he just took some easy online courses to make himself seem more qualified than he actually is.
Now, Pierre took astrobiology at the University of Manchester. I'm going to tout him a little bit because he doesn't want to pump himself up, but I'll pump up for him. He went to the Manchester. You know, sometimes you feel silly when you say, oh, I did this, I did that. Well, if you did it, it ain't bragging. You know what I'm saying? You're not bragging if you did it. Well, you did it.
Okay, if it's not bragging to talk about what you've done, then tell us all about the courses that you've done on Coursera, Roger.
He went to the University of Manchester in England for astrobiology. What does astrobiology mean? What is astrobiology? Explain it.
It's all about what the living part of what's in the space.
All right, so whatever it is.
Mostly, you know, in a short word.
Yeah, so
everything is a living part of something.
Now, does mainstream understand that?
Mostly not.
So this person claims to have studied astrobiology at the University of Manchester, and when asked if the mainstream understands what he says about astrobiology, he says mostly not, even though he studied under a mainstream university. Clearly, if the mainstream doesn't understand what you're talking about, then what you're talking about didn't arise from your qualifications.
You know, what is the chemistry out there? Why are these rocks? What's going on with the rings around Saturn? What is these comets and asteroids and meteorites? What are they made of? Where do they come from? Why did they just pop up from nowhere?
I'm not sure that astrobiology is the best field to answer all those questions. After all, astrobiology is more about what pertains to life in space, rather than just everything space related. It's kind of like when people hear that I'm a programmer and then want me to fix their computer or phone. And I know how to make a perfectly working computer do what I want it to do, but when it's not perfectly working, that's someone else's job. The point is, don't assume that someone in a profession knows everything that is possibly related in any way to that profession.
What is the minerals? What's the metals? Why are they having metals? And why are some specific metals or specific minerals, let's say, included in a lot of these meteorites, which they can't account for?
I don't know, but maybe ask the people that study astrogeology. They might have an idea, or they might even be working on it. I feel like you'd get a much better answer from that than saying, oh, well, clearly it's a dragon poop or something.
Now, I just had a discussion with the University of Johns Hopkins, actually, Johns Hopkins University, and they made some statements about blood falls. And my claim is, and there's zero question in my mind, those are nanospheres of blood.
Okay, and I wonder what led him to that conclusion. Maybe it's the fact that they're called blood falls, or maybe it's the fact that they are red. I guess it will forever be a mystery. Nobody tell Roger about blood moons, because then he might start to think that the moon is bleeding every so often. But something that I very highly doubt is that Roger has reached his conclusion by actually going to a blood fall and collecting a sample to then be analysed. Because that's how science is done. Science is actually about testing things to see what they actually are. It's not about deciding, oh, well, this thing looks like that thing, so therefore they must be the same thing. No, that's not how science is performed at all.
Now, now, in addition to these 2 courses, I think, what'd you say, you took 15 courses altogether?
15 courses, yeah.
Well, let me put it this way. I recall running into Pierre. My mind does not capture history that well.
You know, I'm not surprised at all by that information.
We were both going to Coursera. I don't know if that's how we met. I don't know how we met. Somehow on the internet, I don't know, somewhere, Facebook, whatever it was.
I think I understand what happened now. What was likely is that you were both doing something that had to do with Facebook science. That's probably how you met.
And Coursera, you go to school for free anywhere in the world. Anywhere, right? Remember, it was just amazing. I went to all kinds of places too. I went to the University of Geneva, and I actually did go to Johns Hopkins for genomics.
So the going to school for free anywhere in the world is setting off a lot of alarm bells. It makes me think that this is something that doesn't go that deep into the topic. And it makes me think that maybe the course that he did was an introduction to genomic technologies from the Johns Hopkins University, which takes 6 hours to complete. I might be wrong, but that does seem like the kind of course that Roger might be talking about here, and would probably make him think that he knows more about genomics than he actually does.
And this guy is from Johns Hopkins. His name's Ken Levy. And he put up a thing about the blood being nanospheres of iron.
Well, that's very different to blood, because whilst blood does contain iron, iron itself isn't blood.
But I contacted him, and he contacted me back. I was surprised, because nobody ever does.
Well, if I'm remembering correctly, haven't you tried contacting people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, someone who probably gets thousands of emails a day?
And I don't know whether he was just wanted to be abrupt or he just thinks I didn't get it.
I'm going to go with the latter. He probably thought that you didn't get it.
But I was pretty thorough about what I sent him. I sent him explanations, pictures, and all that stuff. So he sent back, he says, oh, no, you don't understand.
Yeah, that sounds about right, because as I mentioned earlier, there is a big difference between just looking at pictures and coming to conclusions based on those compared to actually doing the science.
I had written in there that it was hematite and magnetite. To a geologist, hematite and magnetite are crystals. They're not round little globular things. But as they petrify from blood, which is the red and the black, they do become crystallized. That's true. But that's after the thing's been dead and dried out. Now, these are not dead and dried out. These are dead and still saturated with life.
Except hematite and magnetite have nothing to do with blood. The only relation that they have is that they have both iron and oxygen in them. This would be like claiming that rust is just blood, because that also contains iron and oxygen. There is also the problem of trying to have a globule of hematite, and given that hematite is generally a crystal until very high temperatures, I imagine that it would be very difficult to have. You can't just say that a particular mineral can act a certain way if you've provided no way for that mineral to act that way. And that's probably why the Johns Hopkins guy said that you don't understand it.
They're not dried, they were frozen. They're now starting to decompose more and more and more. That literally, and I'm not kidding you, that thing could just start gushing blood out of the ground like unbelievable because of pressurization.
Well, I think that means that Roger and I can actually agree on something, albeit for completely different reasons. That we need to do something about climate change. If we don't do something about climate change soon, then from Roger's point of view, then our oceans will just be filled with blood. Come on, Roger, we need to stop this from happening.
And the pressure of decomposition, which is exactly what happens when something, biology, right? Under the ground, cap it off, it's going to get pressurized.
Well, that would completely depend on how it's decomposing. If it's pressurizing, then it would have to have something to do with bacteria or fungi, I'd imagine. In which case, it shouldn't be too difficult to get evidence of this decomposition, as I talked about earlier. After all, a big part of science is collecting evidence to test your hypothesis.
So, that's what creates the oils and gases and everything else, is because of decomposition of bodily tissues. That's what it is, bloods and so forth. And there's different grades of oils. and gasolines and, hydrocarbons, primarily hydrocarbons.
Well, there is a known process for creating fossil fuels, and the thing is, it can be explained with the organisms that we know about. We don't have to invent new giant ones. Roger's kind of running into a problem here where he's trying to re-explain pretty much everything, but doing it really poorly. After all, the process of organisms being turned into fossil fuels is a well-known process, and Roger just wants to throw that out in favor of his half-baked ideas.
All right, so Pierre and I are out here in the desert in North Africa looking for a fish. And guess what? There's a big fish right there. I wonder what he's doing in the desert.
Okay, here's a question. Where would you expect that fish to swim? Because there is no ocean on Earth that is large enough for a fish that big to swim. Any fish that could get that big would die from drowning long before it reaches that size.
He's not swimming.
Not anymore.
No, not anymore. He got whacked by this dragon above him. I mean, this is not your average everyday stuff.
Well, I want to know where that fish could swim in the first place. And apparently we're onto a dragon now? This is all just pareidolia with no actual thought for the logic behind how it would actually work. You've also got to squint a little bit as well.
I don't know. This is the dragon called Typhon. It's completely written about exactly what it is. And he attacked the gods, one of which is Ares right here, who happens just now to be a dead fish laying in the desert.
Well, first things first, that dragon is way too flat. I don't know if Roger knows this, but creatures tend to be 3D, not 2D. And secondly, we're going way off the deep end here, claiming that dragons fought gods and that's why everything's a fossil. No wonder there is no real logic behind any of it. It just seems like a mishmash of things that Roger really wants to believe is true, and that's why he believes it. Not because he's actually tested it, but because that's what he wants to believe.
When we're talking about blood gushing out, down in Antarctica, it's a little tiny blood vessel compared to what you see here. Now, how can I make that claim? Well, because of this. Where he spit his venom, it literally ate the scales off this fish. These are blood vessels.
Once again, this is nothing more than pareidolia. It looks like something, so therefore, in Roger's mind, it must be that thing. I'm actually very surprised that people take Roger seriously when Roger's whole thing is, oh, this thing looks like that thing, therefore this thing must be that thing. And that's all that it is. But in addition to that, now we've got 2D dragons fighting fish gods, and we're still supposed to take him seriously? Somehow some people think that the idea that a dragon fought a fish is more believable than the concept of erosion. So I don't really know if there's much more I can really say about Roger's video, because sure, there is a lot left in Roger's video, but it seems like it's just going to be, oh, yeah, this thing looks like this thing, also a dragon killed a fish, and maybe we'll hear about a dragon lighting the sun on fire, who knows? I just hope that I don't find out he's been talking about New Zealand, because the idea that the North Island is just a fish, I know it's called Te Ika a Maui, which means the fish of Maui, that does not mean that it's actually a fish. So I think we'll leave it here for now. So leave a like and subscribe if you like this video. Leave a comment letting me know what you'd like to see me make videos on in the future. I will see you in the next video. Between you and me...